Hey everyone, it's autumn, a time for harvest festivals and family reunions. And if you're planning on getting together with your family, you should protect yourself and them by getting an updated COVID vaccine. If you're 50 or older, you're at greater risk for hospitalization and death, especially if you have a chronic disease. So get an updated vaccine now. Need more information? Talk to a doctor. Find updated COVID vaccines at vaccines.gov. We can do this. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Yeah.
Also, when you're hearing this, you only have 2 more days to fill the form out and book the hotel room.
No, we're going to give it up. It's up to the 6th. So you have up to October 6th.
When this comes out, it'll be, I think, the 4th.
Is it?
I think this comes out on the 4th of October.
Well, you know.
Wait,
better late than never.
This comes out, or never mind. Oh, wait, what are we talking about? I forgot what we were recording. We're recording the intro to this other episode.
This is actually going out in 2 days.
Good call. I completely forgot.
We can cut that out.
Just cut it all out.
I'm leaving it in.
You're listening to the Janchi Show, hosted by 3 Korean American adoptees diving headfirst into what it means to be adopted, Korean, American, and more. And now, here's your hosts, Nathan, Patrick, and KJ.
Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the Janchi Show. This is KJ, Nathan, and Patrick here with another great episode. And I say that having not heard the episode. We'll get into it. Fellas, how are you doing?
Being a real me, not being there for the episode.
I'm really pulling a Patrick, if you will. I don't think that's right. Both of you have missed. It's my turn to miss an episode.
That is true.
Yeah. It's fine.
We all owe it to each other to miss at least one interview.
I don't know. I think
I've missed 3. If I'm remembering correctly. Anyways, I'm doing good. How are you doing? Nathan, how are you doing, I guess? Not to steamroll over you.
It's okay. I'm just here. Don't worry about me.
Playing with Legos.
Pretty much. Yeah,
I'm dealing with allergies.
Oh, yeah?
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I wasn't going to say anything. We have some allergies here too, but other than that, not much going on. I can't say it. Anything major going on over here in the old Colorado area, but excited about our live show. That's for sure.
Oh,
I'm excited about that.
That is an excellent segue. That
yes.
I spent so much time thinking about it, and now that we're recording, I'm like, oh yeah, live show.
That was the most low-key intro we've ever done.
It's fine.
We came in super low, and then acted like we had no idea what was happening, and then Nathan expertly segued us into
what's happening. You know what, Nathan? Just tell us about the live show, because you're probably the only one that does know what's happening.
That's very true.
Well, I know some things that are happening. I want lots of things to happen. I mean, I have all these plans, things that I want to happen, but we'll see if we can make it happen. But we are excited that we have the essentially the registration form that KJ was so kind to make. So at least we have that up. So there is a form if you go to janchishow.com/live. And you can fill out some information there, or when you click on a button there, you can fill out some information that just pretty much gives us your name and phone number and address and all that stuff. You can also pay if you want to reserve a spot. You can send money to me at Nathan-Nowak on Venmo.
Oh, putting his Venmo out there for the world.
Well, other than that, it's going to be in Carrollton, Texas, October 22nd. It's going to be an all-day event, so just plan to be with us for the whole day.
Yeah.
And we're going to have 2 interviews, one interview and then one solo show.
2 live shows.
So 2 live shows, yes. We're going to have...
Technically 1 live show, 2 portions. I would say 2 parts. 2 parts, 1 show.
We'll get back to it.
All right, we'll figure it out.
We'll have
Semantics.
sorted this out.
When we sit down to do it that day, we'll figure it out then.
We'll take a poll from the audience.
We get it. It's fine. Yeah.
We figured it out.
But yeah, and then of course we got the Korean barbecue for dinner, and then Noribong for an after party, I guess you could call it. So we hope everyone can make it. There's a few other things that we're hoping to plan, but we will fill you guys in as those things become developed.
Like film.
Nice. Yeah. So
Got it.
come on down to Dallas, Texas. There's a major airport here, so should hopefully be easy. I don't know.
Well,
That assumes, I guess, that the listeners are near a major airport. Maybe it's not.
So
So
very
funny
true.
story on that one, actually. Southwest doesn't go into DFW.
No, it goes into left field.
Yeah.
Love.
So for anyone, look, it's not that much further. I guess they're both almost the same distance from Carrollton, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one's a little more east, one's a little more
Love Field is
west,
nicer.
and one's south. Okay, I'm flying
Yeah.
into Love Field, so
Nice.
I was going to go.
That's the home of
Southwest.
Southwest, baby.
Yeah. So
I'm flying into the other one that's not so nice.
Well, it depends on where you go. It's like it's in different states of
Yeah.
readiness.
Yeah, but I didn't know that. That was the first time I when I was booking, I was like, because I've never actually really been to Dallas. So
Wow. All right.
show me around, Dallas.
I'll show you a real good time. We're gonna go to a place where JFK died. We're gonna go to a Holocaust museum. You're gonna be so amped. We got a lot of happy things going. We can go to the state fair. That's actually legitimately happy. Where Big Tech's caught on fire. That's sad. It's fine. It's fine, guys.
I like the
Come
peaks
on
and
out.
valleys of this trip. High, low.
Yeah, I know. And I hope it's not
low,
100
low,
degrees.
high, low,
So,
low, high,
Low,
low.
low, high, low.
Yeah.
well, either way, I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, hope everyone can make it. We've already got a
I'm
few
also
people
looking
signed up.
forward to
So yeah, so thank you for those who jumped on the entry form already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not what this episode is about. Patrick, what is this episode about?
This episode is about a lot of different things. Our guest today, or on this interview, comes to us from the Netherlands. Something that we did not establish at the beginning of the interview. As I was listening to it, I was like, we just blow
did we
right
not say
into
it?
it. But just specifically from Amsterdam. And she shares a lot about her story. I really don't want to spoil anything here leading into it, other than the fact that she learns a lot of very interesting things on her first trip back to Korea. And I think that her story is really powerful. I think there's a lot of different things that happen in there that are unexpected. And I think we have a really good, deep discussion, sans KJ, with our guest. Sans KJ. But yeah, I just thought it was a really fantastic interview, a really good discussion, and stick around for the food portion because there is a question that gets answered there that I think is really valuable and beneficial as well. So that is what this conversation, not just food. Oh, and also, yeah, you have to stick around for the snack because we are healing ourselves with this tasty treat that we're trying.
Right. Okay.
It's very fun. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll that clip with our interview with Hyeshil. Welcome back to the Janchi Show interview portion. Very, very excited today. We have a guest who has been a longtime listener. We've just found out prior to hopping on this recording. And someone who I'm actually not going to spoil anything about what we're about to share. So please, everyone listening out there, welcome our guest, Hyeshil. Hyeshil, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sorry that intro was just kind of a little bit all over the place because, I don't know, I haven't rolled into an interview in a while, but this is a really...
It seemed fine to me.
Thank you. Thank you. As someone who's listened to the show, you know that I can get on a little bit of a tangent, but I'm excited because our pre-show conversation was really great, and I'm really excited to dig into some of these things that we just talked about with you for our listeners to be able to hear as well. So, as you know, we are going to start off and kick it off by asking you to share as much or as little of your adoption story as you would like.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, I guess I would start my story in September 1983 in Seoul, South Korea, and with a woman named Moon Kyung-hee, who was about to go into labor. And she was living in Seoul in the early 80s, and at the time it was still a military dictatorship. And I imagine that she didn't really have many means necessarily. I also don't think people were necessarily dirt poor, but there wasn't that much, you know. And she had to get herself to a birth clinic. And I imagine that she either was able to go by car or she took the subway. But she arrived at this small building in the middle, really like geographically the middle of Seoul, at the foot of the mountain where the Seoul Tower is, in a little street with houses and some fruit trees. And she went into the clinic by herself, reportedly. And there she gave birth to me. And she spent some days in the clinic with me. And it's not clear how many days we spent together, but we did. And that was our time together. And then what happened next is a little shady and unclear, because it's reported that she left to make sure that we had a place to stay and to make arrangements, and also to get money to pay for the treatment. And then she would come back and pay and take me. So she left me at the clinic. And she didn't come back at first, and she only phoned the clinic like 3 times to discuss, like what to do. And then it says in my documents that she agreed, if she wouldn't come back before the 18th of September, and I was born on the 7th, that she would relinquish me and that it was okay to send me to an orphanage. And then that paper was signed reportedly by her, which would mean that she came back, which is, so it's shady as to who came up with that paper, And then she didn't come back. So by the 21st of September, I was brought to the KSS orphanage, and I stayed there for about a little over 2 more months. As you know, in one of the 250 beds that were filled with babies at all times, with a sponge next to your face, with a bottle, which you would find or not find. I imagine no walks outside. I don't think they had 250 bugaboos lined up to take us for walks, and hungry. And then we flew. I got an orphanage visa. Went to the Netherlands, which was one of the countries that KSS assigned to send their babies to, of course. Picked up by 2 Dutchmen who flew to Korea, 2 random guys who decide to do this type of job, and who picked up, I think, 7 babies for that particular flight. And the agency booked 3 chairs for the 2 men and all the babies. I think also to save money. Yeah, that's tough. I mean, traveling with 1 baby. Yeah, I don't know if you have kids, but that's yeah. So when I arrived at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, which is still a special place for me, I met my adoptive parents, and my mother always tells me that she brought 3 bottles with different drinks, because she didn't know what I would drink, and I finished all of them because I was just hungry.
Right.
Yeah, I am also a big eater, but I was definitely hungry. And then I started my life in the Netherlands. And the whole story with my mother was never told. And instead, I got documents from Korea that said that I was an abandoned baby and I was found somewhere with a note in my clothes, and that my parents were both unknown. So that was the point in my life where she was erased from existing, which is one of my biggest griefs to this day. And then, so I started my life, and I tried to be a good kid, and grew up, and eventually moved to Amsterdam. And then at a certain point, my sister, who's also a Korean adoptee, but from a different family, she decided to go to Korea. And I wasn't entirely out of the fog. It was like, there were a couple of really nice friends, like good friends, who had planted little seeds and said, shouldn't you go and look, But I never had. It's also not really how we were raised. And then she went. And she texted me this picture of her in our orphanage. And this is a moment where something snapped in me, and I thought, why am I not there? Why am I not there? I am. So it made it more a realistic, like something that you can plan to go there, and not just a thought of, oh, one day I'll go to Korea.
Right.
It made it tangible. And I booked flights the same week.
Oh, wow.
Huh.
Yeah, we were like, okay, this is
Like
happening.
the switch was literally flipped.
Yeah.
Like there was no like gradual turning on. It was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, things had been brewing. I remember one conversation with a friend, and I don't know, we were talking about Korea, and he was like, do you want to go sometime? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, yeah, the typical question of as a tourist, or do you want to search? And it was one of the first times I answered honestly. And I said, I would like to know what it's like to be there, to move there, to be around, the
Just
same people
exist
as
in
me.
that space.
Exactly. And he was like, oh, so to know if it feels like different from here. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, well, I don't think so. Which is, it's a very Dutch down to earth response. Like,
Sure.
and I remember saying, well, I don't know that, and therefore you also don't know that. And then he was like, oh yeah, I guess. It was fine, but it was just, for me, it was an important moment. And then, when I saw my sister there, I went. So I went back to the orphanage after 35 years. And I expected just not much, because you grow up with this idea that nothing is there. It's your truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we sat down, my husband and I, and Mrs. Kim, she had this big file that was quite thick. And she put it on the table and told this story about my mother coming to the clinic, etc. And I still find it really hard to describe what that's like when your entire truth, and so these roots that you didn't even know that you had, are also instantly cut off in a way. So it's finding and losing at the same time. I mean, I think you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was shocking. And the entire trip was, never have a first trip twice, so it was special. And when I returned, I decided, okay, then I also want to find her. She exists. I finally knew that she existed, so I went to search. So the first thing you have to do is request all your papers, right, and your documents, which I find also a humiliating process, because it makes me feel institutionalized. And for instance, on the documents, it says things like, "What are your hobbies and skills?" I'm like, how is that relevant? How is that relevant? But anyway, so I went through all of those things and requested as much as possible, and then. And Goal assisted me, the organization.
Yep.
And then eventually they were like, okay, I think we have everything. The only thing we don't really have is a birth certificate. And as you were born, like in a clinic, there probably should be one. So I just emailed and said, can I have a birth certificate? And I was like, what can be on the birth certificate, right? It's just a statement, basically. And then I sent it to them to get it translated. And then the next morning, also due to the time difference, I just got out of the shower and I checked my phone, and I had this message from the man who was helping me. And he said, we see something in your birth certificate, and I don't know if you are aware of it, but we weren't aware of it. And I was like, what can it be? And then he said, well, you were born as twins.
Whoa.
So I really had to sit down.
Yeah.
I was really like, and I was instantly like, what do you mean? Like, how does it say, are you sure? And we checked, he showed me that the documents say there's this option on the form to tick if it's multiples, if there's multiple, birth.
Yeah.
And it said yes with the multiples, and then I was circled as number 2. So I was the second baby to come out. And we had it translated by 3 different people to just be, because it's this tiny, tiny detail And some people think that the other child died and I survived, and some don't. And I mean, there's never 100% truth, but generally, it is believed that I was born as a twin. So obviously I was furious, and I emailed Mrs. Kim, which is no point, but it was at least was my, I needed to go somewhere with my, how on earth is this? Did you not tell me? And she was like, oh yeah, I didn't see that. Yeah, I overlooked. And I was like, okay. And yeah, so there's I think in big lines, my story. And as I said, adoption, I find a transitional word.
Mm-hmm.
It means to go from one place to another, and also to be adopted, so to be taken in here. And I think my story is really about someone who has a life, someone who exists, and who exists to this day. So, yeah.
Well, one, I really appreciate you sharing all that.
Thank you. Thanks.
I think a lot to unpack, and a lot of like loose threads still, I think, which I think is really interesting. I think it's an interesting part of all of our stories as adoptees, but especially I think permeating out throughout yours. I want to start with your sister, actually. I was going to ask you what prompted her trip to go back to Korea. And actually, before I ask that question, I want to get the timeline correct on when this kind of all started. Is this a recent, like, is all of this work that has been going on, the returns and everything like that, happening recently within like the last 3 to 5 years? Or is this something that's been taking place over a little bit of a longer timeline?
It's quite recent. So the first time I went back was in 2018.
Okay.
And then I went 3 times before until the pandemic. And actually, I'll go next month. So I'm very excited.
Okay.
Which is a good question, because it is true that all of this information came to me very condensed, and it was extremely overwhelming.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now I guess that definitely helps. So your sister's trip to Korea, because you said that was kind of what prompted, like when she sent you that picture of her at the orphanage, like what prompted a lot of this. So when did she go back, and did something prompt her specifically to make that trip? Or was she just like, oh, I have a chance to go to Korea and I'm going to just go?
Yeah, she did actively make that decision to go. At the time, she was pregnant with her second child, and her first child was, I think, 2. He was quite small, and it was also, in my sister's fashion, a very practical decision, because it is still somewhat affordable, And if she would travel with 4, and I think for her, that, if I can speak for her, that kind of pushed her to do it now. Like, okay, if I want to go, otherwise it will take me years again.
Sure.
And I'm not sure what emotionally, pushed her, but she just wanted to go. It was this thing where she was like, yeah, I think I'll go. And not necessarily a huge process that I know of. Yeah.
Did you all, were these conversations that y'all had been having either maybe growing up or prior to her trip to Korea? Had y'all had conversations about, one, adoption and being adopted, and navigating life as an adoptee, and then 2, I guess, from an ethnic standpoint, because I think in the Netherlands it's not very many Asian people, but specifically like Korean adoptees as well, even though Netherlands adopted many Korean children. Was that a conversation that you had prior to her even going, or what was that like?
For a very long time, we didn't talk much about it. It's not as if we actively didn't speak about it, but it was just more the standard for us, I guess, that it was just the way it was. And that I think, if I look back now, maybe we also didn't really dare to dig into it.
Sure.
We were also raised with the idea, like, you are my parents were always like, "Oh, if you want to search, you can always search, and we'll help you, but please don't." You like,
without saying don't do it.
Right.
They're like,
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
help you, but
but you're Dutch now. You're
Right.
Dutch now.
Sure.
Which is a very, very damaging thing to say. And
because it makes
so,
it like layers it underneath, like because you don't realize that's what's happening until
would
it's
always
happened a
hesitate
bunch
to
of
do it.
times. And then it's like, oh, well, how do I now walk back from this? Like, how do I build back from this layer of doubt that's been put on top of me, unconscious to myself? And how do I work past that?
Yeah, and it made it harder because by saying, "Oh, you're Dutch," it basically says also, "Hey, you're raised white." It also means that you have to undo that once you start searching. Instead of, whereas if they would have, been more mindful about our heritage, then at least, So going, it was the self-racialization was one of the hardest things that I've gone through in the past years, and I think that's also why my sister and I didn't talk about it super much. And then now we do. Now we talk lots about it, and it's really good and nice, and I feel very proud to be a Korean and to express that, and yeah.
So, well, thank you for sharing that as well. And I think it leads me into this next question of, you talked about that first trip going back to Korea. You mentioned in the conversation with your friend that you wanted to go back and exist there, to just feel what that felt like. When you finally got to go for the first time in 2018, were you able to do that? Did you have enough time built in? Did you go, I guess my question is, did you go solo, or did you go in a group, like on a trip with a tour, or what was your first experience like?
I went just with my husband, and we also carefully decided to do it like that, and to leave our daughter at home for the first trip, and to really be able to feel whatever I and we would feel. And as the visit to the orphanage was so shocking, it was so deeply shocking, I experienced a lot of direct grief in that first trip. And one of a couple of things I remember. So at a certain point, we went to visit my place of birth, so the clinic. And so I've actually been there, and now I go there every time, I'm there. And as I was walking in the area, I was thinking, wow, I've grown up for 35 years in another part of the world, another part of this planet, and you come back. It's so instinctive and so sort of natural, and I found that very emotional. And at the same time, also on other trips later, I've been able to make really beautiful experiences and connections to people there. And at one point, I've really been comforted by a man who I didn't know in the middle of the city. So, you can find comfort in a city of 12 million people. And those connections and those moments have contributed to my feeling at home there, reconnecting to the country and the existing there, as you say, on top of things like my husband not being able to find me in the subway because he was like, you know that?
Yeah,
my friend said the exact same thing when I went too.
It's so stupid, but it's true, because here it's like, okay, it's a lot of white people and it's you.
Yeah.
And there it's like,
you just
all the
blend
black
in
hair.
all of a sudden.
Yeah. But I love it. I love going on the subway there. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah. Did you feel like when you were there, and you were, say, eating the food or walking the streets, you said it felt comfortable, it felt I don't know, like
Instinctive.
surreal, instinctive, right? Did you also like sometimes think, oh man, these could be the street that my mom was walking on, or this could be the food that I was, fed for the first 3-4 months as a kid, or I guess you'd be giving mostly milk, but that your mom ate or something
More
like that.
kimchi.
But yeah, exactly. I don't know. Maybe they. I just when I first had Korean food, I felt like a connection to a lot of it that I just didn't think I would. I guess.
Yeah. At the same time, in the beginning, it was also a little uncomfortable. I had kimchi is something you need to learn to eat if you haven't been brought up, and I found that very confronting as well. Because I wanted to be like, oh, this is my food, and you're like, fuck, my mouth is burning off, and so in the beginning it was also confronting, and now it feels like we eat Korean food every week, and being there, I definitely thought, especially that first trip, I was completely preoccupied by looking at everyone's faces. And it was also exhausting. And I also had this very sort of strained idea of how I was supposed to behave, and as if I was afraid that they would see like I hadn't grown up well, or I hadn't done well or something. And that has that has really changed. I'm completely comfortable, and I feel just like myself when I'm there now. And I also don't look at everyone's faces, but there are definitely instances where I think not just particular people, but also, those hardworking women at the markets, and you see that there's also really tough way of living there.
Sure.
There's a lot of people who are not necessarily like street poor, but just constantly surviving,
Right.
always working, and you never really have anything. And those endless high rises. So those things I find confrontational in a way, but also I've also come to love it. And
I just had like this, I don't know, this realization as you were talking about that. And not the confrontation part, but it's the easy feeling of not knowing, while you're there, certain things, you're not wanting to project that you weren't raised well, or that you don't know certain things about the Korean culture or things like that. I think my first trip when I was there, I'm having this like realization that I did some similar things where I was trying to fit in a way, like kind of how I was raised, where I was trying to fit in, but I was trying to fit into the white culture at that time. And now I'm in Korea, I'm trying to fit in with the Korean culture and not stick out as a foreigner, even though I am a foreigner. I wanted to like be able to read the menus. I wanted to be able to know the street signs, or know kind of, where I was going, or even where the bathroom was and things like that.
Yeah.
But that's funny. I just never really realized that was a very similar feeling to when I was being raised. Maybe that's something that you also felt when you were saying that's that uncomfortable feeling while you were there.
Yeah, and I've thought a lot about it, because it's, I think, one of the most dangerous things or comments generally for any person of color who doesn't live in the country of their parents' origin or whatever, is to say you are not whatever enough. You are not brown enough. You are not this enough. You're not Dutch enough. You're not whatever. And I think it's one of the worst things people could say to me, not necessarily because I want to be Korean so much, but just because it really makes you feel torn. It really makes you feel as if you don't belong anywhere. And I think it's one of the feelings I struggled with most after some of those first experiences, and wondering why I went and if it was a good decision or not. And I've come to reconcile that in knowing more who I am as a person, because I would have had those traits there, and I have those traits here. And I see it in my child, who has traits that are not affected by how my parents raised me, or,
Right.
So those things really help. but I really have an aversion to, saying things like, for a really silly example, but this thing in America where people say that Donald Glover is for white people. So watching
Sure.
Atlanta is like
Yeah.
I find that a terrible thing to say. I find it really disgusting, to be honest. This idea that someone is supposed to be more of this or less of that, it's a very dangerous thing to say.
I totally agree, because I think when you tell somebody that they're not enough, you're stripping and chipping away at their humanity.
Yeah.
And like especially just from an adoptee's perspective and from my specific perspective, it's like feeling that I guess as we talked about, it makes it very, very difficult to kind of come back from that and to find reconciliation with that. Like when I talk about my story in my life, that first phase of rejection that I was in is 30 years long. So that's like, it's a lot, because it's like that builds up over time. And it's not even just specifically racist comments, but definitely the microaggressions, but even like the well-intended, like not even trying to probably make you feel bad with a where are you from, or why don't you go on a birth search, or why don't you know about the language, or this or that, and then on the flip side, expecting you to know all of those things, especially from like an ethnic group side, where it's like, oh, well, now you're definitely not Asian or Korean enough because you don't know, or you didn't grow up here, or this or that. And like just that slashing away at humanity is really tough. And I think it's something that happens a lot. Like the Donald Glover example specifically is a really good one, where it's like, unfortunately, one of the universal things that can bind all of us is the trauma. We all experience it differently, but trauma and harm and violence like this, that's dictated essentially by white domination and white supremacy and institutionalized racism. It's tough, and it's like, and it becomes normalized within our own communities and our own language. And it's like, if we're not recognizing that, then we can't battle back against it. And so I think it's really interesting the way you talk about having to have navigated Korea like that the first time, because as I get ready to go back in October, and are you going on the OKF tour by chance in October? You said you're going next month?
No,
okay. When are you going to be in? We'll talk about that later.
That'll be fun though.
But as I get ready to go back, I think that's probably the thing that I worry about the most. And I like what you said about knowing yourself, and that allows you to better experience and better enmesh yourself within Korea itself. But for me,
and here.
and at home.
Yeah.
And like, so I'm experiencing that now here in America and in Indiana specifically, about feeling like myself, fully accepting who I am as a person, as a Korean, as an American, as an adoptee, and moving forward in that way. And I know that that's helping me as I get ready to go to Korea, but I am very worried that I'm going to be so tense about performing wrong, bowing incorrectly, not handing things the appropriate way, and just causing disrespect, which I am not intending to do, because then it makes me question myself in the, I'll never be enough in this way. I'm not enough. Even though I found this new place of acceptance, it's still like, and it's because of those layers of being told that by other people for so long, that you never make it here, or you never be enough here, that doubt creeps back in. And I think that's one of the major tragedies of being an adoptee, or the adoptee experience, is that even well-intended comments leave those layers of trauma, and we have to, for no fault of our own, have to climb back through those in order to accept ourselves fully. And so I just really appreciate you saying that, because I'm getting ready to go back, and it's just things that I think about, and I'm thinking about now. But I did want to ask you, your first trip, like you said, ended in this massive shock. So share, if you can, about the shift that happens when you leave Korea with this new information, and you now have to come back to the Netherlands and start that journey. Can you talk about what maybe not only the shift in mindset, but the shift in tactic for you was, as somebody who is self-racializing, as somebody who's coming out of the fog, or navigating the fog at least? Can you talk a little bit about what that shift was like, and if if there were major changes that you had to make in order to push forward to where you're at now?
Yeah, definitely. So when I remember very well when we left Korea, that first trip, I was crying in the airplane. And now, usually, when I've had the trip, I'm fine to go home, and I also like to go. I'm fine. That first trip, I was crying, and I was crying really deeply because I thought, I'm so sorry, I'm leaving again. I thought I finally came back, and I've been here so short, and now I'm leaving again. And I felt really as if I was leaving my mother behind, just having found out that week that she existed and then leaving. So that was this very, I had no idea what this feeling was coming from. So I came back completely, really in shock and grief. And I was weirded out. I was very, in a very strange state. And then the self-racialization, it all took a while and a lot of therapy. And I really compare it a little bit to a coming out. It is something that you have to start communicating to your friends and family. It's such a strange and unfair thing to do, because you have to say, by the way, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm Asian, I'm Korean, and I kind of want you to acknowledge that.
Sure.
And not in a way of like, oh, everything, you have those people who are like, I saw a Korean on TV last night and telling me, and I'm like, well, good for you. Right.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about. I mean,
exactly.
The acknowledging, especially with my inner circle of my heritage. And I spent a lot of time in the beginning being angry at people for not doing it the right way. And I was like, why aren't they calling me? Why aren't they this? Why aren't they that? And then after a while I discovered, okay, so what am I doing? What is it that I really want? And I mean, they're living their lives. They don't go to work thinking, oh, what's up with Hyeshil and her heritage search or whatever.
Right.
So I started communicating this slowly but surely myself. So starting to eat the food, starting to watch more Korean movies, especially. I'm not really a huge K-drama fan. I love the films. Yeah, I can't deal with those movies. I also can't deal with the music, with the K-pop. I just can't.
I'm kind of the same. There's some that I kind of like, but most of it I'm like, I can leave it.
It's fine. It's fine. They have a lot of they have Korean R&B. That exists. I mean, so navigating what I liked and didn't like, and now it just took time, and it integrated into my life. I read, the year I went for the first time in 2018, Pachinko came out, and I read that book, and that book means so much to me. It's I always tell my friends, you should read it. It's my favorite book, but you're not allowed to say anything negative about it because I love it so much, and you can't. And it was as if someone was telling me what my history is. Sure. That book is. And now, actually, I've just had my birthday earlier this month, and I celebrated by taking all my friends to a Korean restaurant, which is something that I wouldn't have dared to do years ago. I would have felt like a complete phony and fake. And even now, I was a little part of me was nervous. But I was there, and my husband ordered me a myeokguk for my birthday, and it was really special. And I think I feel confident now being who I am, and I know I'm a little the gestures and the whole physicality and the way of carrying yourself is different in Korea. Sure. So I know I'm a little maybe out there for Koreans, but I don't mind, because I find that in a way, as adoptees, we're almost like clones. It's maybe a strange way of putting it. Clones don't have heritage; they are a different kind, and they. I feel sometimes, I think sometimes about, as an adoptee, we are this group of people, and I belong to that group, and I need you to know about it. So I need the people here to know about it and what that experience is really like, and also the people there. And I find that people in Korea, they have a different reaction because they are the giving country and not the receiving country.
Right.
So they're not like, oh, aren't you super grateful for your really wealthy Western life? And they're sorry. They're always like, I'm happy that you came back. Did you find your Amma? And, so navigating that has been quite a thing, definitely. But I feel that I've grown into it. And now I don't blame other people around me anymore for not doing that for me. I mean, it's something that I should be doing,
That's great. I'm glad that you are comfortable with all of the emotions and feelings that you're having on both sides of being in the Netherlands and in Korea. Do you also talk to any other Koreans that are not adopted in the Netherlands? And I guess that would be like the third category of people that you talk to and feel comfortable talking to about your adoption. Because I found a lot of Korean Americans are very interested in my adoption as well, and it's like it's a different story of the way I tell it to them, because they understand a little bit about Korea, but they don't understand about the Korean adoption part of it.
No.
So, yeah.
No, I think in America there are a lot of Korean Americans. And to find a Korean here who, immigrated or staying here for a while, that is rare. That's really rare. Okay. There are very, very few Koreans. I actually had one. I'm a teacher, and I had a Korean student, which was funny. And I mean, obviously, I didn't dump my entire life story on this.
Hey, kid, come here.
I was like, let's talk about me. Let's talk about me.
Listen to my story.
Sit down. I'm going to tell you a story.
I didn't, but I did say, I just loved working with her. And I have one friend who is from Korea, and we've spoken about it. And it is different. You have to explain it in a different way. I feel comfortable sharing my experience, but I can tell I have more of I have more of a need for her to understand. I want her to acknowledge,
Right.
And I feel bad because I don't want to make her a representative of the entire, Republic of Korea. So I guess that's the small difference. But yeah, there are very few Koreans in the Netherlands, and yeah, there are adoptees, as you said. The Netherlands has adopted a lot of Koreans, and there are 5,000 of us, I think.
So I want to ask you about that, but I want to go back to your clone metaphor, because I've never heard it put like that before, but I actually think it's a really apt metaphor, especially when in like my personal work of talking about, not changing the definition of adoption per se, which I think we'll probably get into here in a second as well, but just the narrative around adoption, where you are always either a baby or a well-adjusted adult or a ungrateful or maladjusted adult, and there's no in between, and there's no nuance to our overarching narrative of our community. And I think it's very much similar to a clone in the sense that we're like, it's almost like manufactured. Like you're manufactured, you're grown, and then you're this, and then you're taken to this state, which is either ideal or non-ideal for whoever is involved. And also, on top of that, your history is manufactured, where for most of us, or many of us, we may never know or get the answer to why or what really happened that led to us being adopted. And I guess just because I'm a big Star Wars fan, it did make me think about the Clone Wars series, where there's episodes in that show where they humanize the clones. And now that and you put it that way, and I'm thinking about it as like these stories, like this show, it took something off the beaten path in order for these characters to be given life and to find their footing in their own story. And I think that, really when I think about what we're doing as adoptees, we are finding our ways on the non-traditional paths, which are, I guess, probably becoming more traditional in the modern age, but like through social media, through podcasting, through blogging, to tell and find our stories. And when these larger corporations, these people that major productions who do these different things start to take notice, like that helps lift us up, because at the end of the day, we can continue to do all of this stuff, which we will, which is great for our community. But when we are wanting to create that change, these people who have the privilege and power and the resource right now to give the platform have to start seeding the platform. And sometimes we have to take the platform from them. But at other times we saturate and flood the market with what we're doing. And I think it's just, I don't know. I just not had heard that metaphor before, and it's got my mind going in all different sorts of ways. But to tie that into with what you had talked about, connecting in the Netherlands. So there is a concentration of Korean adoptees there, and I've had the privilege of speaking with a few of them via various means, whether it be Clubhouse or on Instagram or social media. What's been your experience with the Korean adoptee community there?
Well, when I was little, I never wanted to join. I always felt I was very, as many adoptees, I was like, keep everything Asian away from me.
Yes.
And, the self-hate is, it's terrible if you looking back now.
Yeah.
But yeah, in these past years, we've gone, with we, my family and my sister and her family. We've joined a couple of events of Arirang, which is the organization for the Dutch adoptees. And what it always does to me is that whenever I enter that room, because when I'm looking for, where's the venue or where is it, where you're like, okay, where are all the Asians? You're like, okay, in which room are they? And then you open the door and I see all of them, and it always makes me realize more that it's true. I think, oh yeah, look at us sitting here. All of these children, shipped out of Korea, raised here. So it always gives me the sense of truth. And as you said, you feel alone. And before the internet, being adopted is a very strange concept. It's just really odd. And you just think, oh, this is my reality, and I guess this is what it's like, and no one else is like me, and that's it. So seeing those other adopted people is nice. However, I've also struggled to connect in a way that felt natural, as I do with my friends.
Sure.
Liking someone just because you like them, and not because you're like, oh, you're also a Korean adoptee. Oh my God.
Right.
And that has, I've struggled to generally find like-minded people that have a similar experience. And, there are just as many experiences of being adopted as there are adoptees.
Mm-hmm.
It's still, I think it's still an ongoing thing for me to find that kind of community. And the Netherlands is, I don't know how much you know about this country, but it's really small. It's like tiny. There are 18 million people in the entire country. And if you drive for 3.5 hours, you've exited the country. And you're like in Germany, or you're in Belgium or whatever.
That's pretty small.
It's for American standards, it's so small,
Yeah, that's like a city in some places in America, I guess.
Yeah, it totally is.
Sure.
And we're like, if you exit the Ring of Amsterdam, my friends are like, oh, do we need to? The whole, it really is like that.
Yeah.
So
Amsterdam's beautiful. The one thing I remember about it is that everybody was riding their bikes, and I loved the bike culture there. I loved that you had entire garages just for bikes.
Yeah,
and not even bike lanes. It was like multi-bike lanes. It wasn't. I mean, it was a really cool bike community. I thought that was really neat.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you a little bit about your profession as well. You said you're a teacher, but you're also an artist. And your website, by the way, was amazing. The work that you've done on
Thank
there
you.
for the books, the illustrations, and you even did some murals and some windows and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about that? And is there any any influence? What influences you, I guess, to be so creative like all of that you've done?
Well, most of the illustration work I've done was before I went to Korea. And those things also have something to do with each other. There's changes. I worked freelance for most of my professional life, and as a graphic designer, and I worked at magazines, and then became an illustrator and also a creative director. And then, so a lot of my inspiration, what I like now, if I look back, you see this sort of, I like cute. I like everything that's cute and sort of, it's in you. It's in you. So I think the first time I went to Korea and I went to whatever Kakao France, I was like, I am from here. So there's this aesthetic, that is definitely inside of me and that I didn't even know of. And I love drawing animals and cute little animals and, sort of a very gentle, soft, fantasy kind of world, sort of a natural world. And then, I was sort of about to stop doing that. I was kind of done with working these small projects every time, and then having not having colleagues, etc. And I wanted more intellectual. How do you say it? To be stimulated more intellectually also. Mm-hmm. And then when I went to Korea, after I came back, there was also a shift in my head, and I had huge trouble working as an illustrator. And I found it's not reasonable, I know it's not reasonable, but I felt that it was so privileged to think that way. And it's also because I had seen all the, the hard life in Korea and connecting that to my own origins. And I don't know, it was just sort of a twist also in my mind. And I stopped doing that. And then the teacher job came to me via a friend. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to try. And then after I taught my first class, I thought, okay, this is everything I didn't even know. I didn't even know I needed. And I became a full-on teacher and passing on creative thinking to young people. Working with young people is it's really the joy of my life. I love my job. I love my colleagues, and it's an intense job, but it's also I love working with people and talking to them and seeing how they think and the coaching. And I also coach teachers now, so not only the students but also teachers. And I think it has really helped me. First of all, you learn from being among other people.
Sure.
And I experienced that because as a freelancer, you're almost always alone. And once I started working there, I thought, first of all, hearing my name, I was like, oh, there are people like,
they're talking to me.
They need, I have a question, or, and you just learn from being surrounded by other people. And that also really helped me in developing, what I told earlier, knowing who I am, navigating the self-racialization. Whenever something happened to me, I would tell my colleagues, and they were so understanding and empathetic and kind and supportive. And that day when I found out about my twin, it was in the early morning, and then I had to teach at 10 o'clock or 9:30 or whatever.
Oh, wow.
And I told my boss, I was like, okay, I have to tell you now. And he was like, what do you want to do, And I said, I want to go in front of class. I just want to, I don't know what I would do at home.
Sure.
And I just went. So in a way, that place is, it's done a lot for me.
I like it. I really appreciate you sharing that because I think, and I really think it makes a lot of sense because we talked just prior about finding community with other Korean adoptees and how it's been a process and it's still like to truly authentically connect and feel like it's not forced. And then as you take in this teaching position that you have seemed like found some genuine connection of community, not necessarily with adoptees, but with folks that you can share that experience with who don't seem to be approaching you or handling it with judgment, but rather with care. You know, as we talked about pre-show.
Most of them.
Yeah, okay, most of them, but at least some certain people, because even like 2 or 3 people.
Yeah,
you know,
and it's, teachers are very nice people.
Sure, my wife's a teacher, so she's pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, you know, it's your job to be empathetic, and most of my colleagues, and I've, you know, a group of them have become really close friends of mine. They are deeply empathetic people and smart, you know, they really listen and they really see you, etc. Yeah, you can have this group of people that is not Korean. And what I like is that you're reminding me of, I think on my second trip to Korea, I really did a search on the street. So you really go in the area where my mother had said that she lived, and with a flyer, you know, with my photo and everything, and talking to old people. And it's one of the most grueling things I've ever done. And then I was able to connect with some people that I met on the street there. And when I came back, and I'm as I said, I'm happy that you're reminding me of it because it's been a while. I thought, you know what? I did that. You know, it made me feel really. I feel that connection and that you know, sense of home, or you know, I am building what this means for me to be adopted, and I am doing that myself because I went out there on the street telling people I'm searching for my mother and talking to those people and being vulnerable. And I think I feel in a way, of course it's a mutual thing, but with my colleagues, I also feel it's empowering to make friends.
Sure.
You know, and to know, okay, I am able to make connection. And that definitely didn't come naturally to me. I find that hard. And I used to be a really shy kid. Yeah.
I totally get that. I totally get that. Well, Hyeshil, I have about 10 million more questions. But in the interest of time, because I know you're joining us and it is very late, we're going to go ahead and transition over to our snack. And I'm going to ask you one more question over there, but we will be right back with a snack item.
Welcome back to the Janchi Show, food, or for today, drink portion of the show. not any little spoiler alert there, but we are not.
You
snacking.
did just spoil it.
I know it is. Sorry, we're not snacking. We're drinking. Nah. But
what are we drinking
today? We are drinking some tea. I thought it would be. This was actually. Hyeshil had this. This is like a thing you've drank many times and have on hand at your place. And when you sent me a photo, I was like, yes, I've seen this. I haven't tried it except for that one that was in the bottle. So I thought this would be perfect for us to get it and try. It is, from what I can tell, the name of the brand, or Sempio, Lotus Root, and Burdock Tea.
Oh yeah, I guess KJ's not here to translate.
The Hangul. I know. And there's very little
huge oversight
English
on our part.
There's not much English on here.
I don't know.
I do know. It says here, it says cha, which is tea.
Okay.
So that's how far I would get.
Nice. Yeah. Farther than me. And I'm supposed to be studying. Perfect.
I've seen some of this before, and I've heard of burdock root before.
Is this what yours looks like?
No. So that's the other one.
I forgot to record video for this. It's too late. Right. We've already started.
We've come too far. But no, it's I've seen burdock root before, and I remember reading in the past about it, but I wanted to go back and look at it a little more. You like this tea, apparently, if you've been drinking it for a while. Why do you like it, and how do you use it, I guess?
Well, so I have the one that has really the dried lotus and burdock root in it, in little pieces, and it looks pretty too. So the lotus with the little how do you say that, little holes in there, and I think it's one of the first things I found once I started eating Korean food, and I just thought I'll try it. And what I do is I make a little pot of hot water, and then throw in usually 1 or 2 lotus roots, and then a couple of more burdock pieces, and I just leave them in there, and then they swell up, of course, and they become bigger. And what I like about it is that it tastes a little bit like cookie tea.
It's
tea. Quite, yeah. I don't
like
drink
sweet?
my tea. Yeah, it's like
Okay.
but like cookie. I find.
Okay.
I'm afraid that mine's not going to taste like that. And
No,
you
so-
don't
I like
have
the way that
lotus
you
one.
make yours together, like
It
put yours
sounds
together
good.
with the different things.
Yeah, I don't
lotus root.
add honey necessarily, which is actually what you can also do is buy the sort of lemon honey type of stuff in a jar, which looks like jelly, right?
Yeah.
And add that to your tea, which I've done before, which is really nice and sort of fresh.
I'm not
Yeah, I
gonna lie, I'm
love
not a
this
big
tea.
tea person. I drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah, I do
But,
too.
I'm a huge tea person, and I don't drink coffee actually.
I want
And
to transition over to tea, but I just haven't made the jump yet. I just can't.
it's healthier for you.
I know. I've
Yeah, well, especially
heard
after you
many
see
a
all the
time.
creamer I put in mine. But yeah,
All right, I'm
I
gonna
like
take a sip
tea.
of this.
I like the smell of it. So when you said cookie, at first when I smelled it, I was like, okay, this is different. And the thing I was thinking, my description was going to be earthy. Which I guess in a way, though, when you say cookie, now makes me think of flour, which makes me think of cookies.
Yeah,
So
cookie dough,
so I'm
maybe.
going to think of cookie dough when I eat it, and not a round, hard root that looks what it looks like on the cover of the picture. Because honestly, when you think of root, you're like, oh, this looks like a like not sugar cane, but like a long like a branch of a tree, really. And of course, the lotus root looks like a potato with holes in it.
That's true.
It tastes pretty good, actually.
All right,
I'm enjoying it.
It really reminds me of being in Korea.
Yeah, I can see.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I like it, and it's hard for me to right now pinpoint what it is I like about it. I don't know if I'd say I can taste the cookie taste, kind of, even though I don't have the lotus. Or wait, what does mine not have?
I don't know.
The lotus root.
You don't have the lotus.
You might just have
You
burdock.
don't have
Mine's
lotus.
just burdock tea, is what it
Yeah.
says. Okay.
Yeah.
But I feel like I can taste it a little bit, and it's like I don't know. I wanted to say it was flat, but it's not flat. It's got like a full flavor, but also not overpowering.
Right.
Full.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's
It's hard to
mild. It's
describe. but
mild.
I like
It is mild. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think that's why I like it.
yeah.
Yeah, and I
well,
think
it's good.
for Korean tea, this is a common tea, and or the corn tea, which is literally like popcorn tea.
Mm.
The
It's
barley
really
teas. Yeah.
it tastes like drinking popcorn.
We drank a tea very early on. I think it was like episode 6, and it was not good for me. It was like
No?
a cold tea, like a bottled tea.
Yeah,
Like
he was the one who
Right.
had the bitter melon tea, I believe.
Was that
A
what it
bitter
was?
melon.
It was not good.
I think it was the bitter melon tea that you had. Yeah.
Another
I
product
tried all
I've
of them. They
disparaged
weren't
on.
different. I mean, it's different too. Cold teas and hot teas, they're different. And I don't know.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
Even if it's the exact same tea, which I saw on the package here, it says you can do it cold on ice. Have you ever had these teas on ice as well?
yeah, and whenever I go to the Korean shop, I take some snacks, and one of my favorite cold drinks is a teasel.
Teasel?
Do you know that one? The
I do
teasel.
not. No.
It's spelled Teazle. A teasel.
Nice.
And it's really, I think it's very funny, but it's also super refreshing and kind of sweeter and like a cold drink.
Oh, that's
Interesting.
good to look that
Yeah.
up. Well, speaking of looking up, I did look up what burdock tea, root tea was what kind of benefits it had, and there's a lot. It lists all kinds of benefits, including prevention and treatment of cancer, which of course it puts in parentheses the center cancer has not insufficient evidence to support that.
I don't think that should be the first one. Is that the first one?
I know it's the first one on there. I know,
Okay,
but there was
that should be at the very end.
but it did say that the study found that it helped free radicals stop certain cancers from spreading. Again, not confirmed, but yeah, that was number one. And then it goes on to soothing a cold and a cough, which makes sense, a warm liquid, improving liver health, which I could see that this has been used to, because they did say it has a lot of antioxidants and it's detoxifying your liver. So there you go, Patrick. For any long weekends of drinking, you can use this at the end of the week.
Perfect.
Post soju night.
Yeah, exactly.
I've not done a tea recovery before.
There you go.
Maybe I should. I'm always trying to hit it with coffee. Maybe I should switch to tea.
Switch it. Let us know how that works out.
Definitely, because coffee dehydrates you more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I'm just coffee in one hand, water in the other hand. It's just back and forth.
Okay.
It also says easing aches and pains because with the anti-inflammatory properties and reducing blood pressure. And then it goes into some cosmetic things, which is interesting: reducing wrinkles, improving hair, and excess water weight, because it is a diuretic. So it does say that it will, potentially. I guess you might have to go to the bathroom after you drink this. I guess so.
Right. So you'll live forever and be beautiful.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me, and I'll take it.
Sounds like very good. Yeah, everything that it lists here says, a lot of good stuff. So
sounds very Korean. Live forever and be beautiful.
It sounds like everything Koreans would like to hear.
Right,
exactly. Not only does it cure cancer, it is good for your skin.
Complexion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, skin.
That curing cancer one, hilarious.
Yeah.
All right. Well, since you are a veteran of burdock root tea, what is your out of five burdock roots? How many would you give the tea?
I would give it 4. I really like it, and it gives me a cozy feeling. It reminds me of Korea, and it's cookie tea. It will, cure everything there's possibly wrong with my body,
right?
And give me good skin. So
exactly. That should, and it's still only got a 4. So imagine what it would be to get a 5.
That is a really good teacher question, actually. Why not 5? That is a typical teacher question. Why not 5? It is. It is a mild tea. It's not like, oh wow, I can't believe my life before this tea. It was,
Good answer.
It is a mild tea. It's not the most special, extravagant of teas.
It's not above and beyond A+.
No,
but it's better than a 3.
Yeah,
it's better than just right in the middle, which is
2.5.
Yeah. I'm gonna go 4 as well. I think I think it's the cozy feeling. Pretty much everything that you said I agree with, Hyeshil. I think it's all of that and more. Honestly, makes me think of Korea. And I've not been back yet, except for when I was adopted. And I don't know, there's just something in there. I think it's just turning a switch. And maybe it's because I'm getting ready to go, but I don't know, something about it. So I'm going to be drinking some of this.
It's in your body.
Right,
it's in your body.
Instinctive, like you
were
were talking about.
There you go.
It
What
is.
we said.
It is.
Yep, you guys. I'm gonna agree with everyone, the community here, and say 4 as well. I do. I like it. I maybe I'd give it a 5 if I had a cookie to eat along with it too. But I think it's definitely. Actually, I do. Oh wait, I have some cookies. Okay. I like it. It's mild, like you said. It's not overpowering. It's not too bitter. I almost added honey to it, but then I was like, nope. I'm gonna go pure, like how it is from the bag. I want it to be, full effect, and I don't feel like it even needs it. Granted, it might taste, a little sweeter, definitely more like a cookie if it had more sweetness to it. But I like it the way it is right now. So.
Just say you want a cookie.
I want a cookie.
Well, I'm glad I bought a box that has 40 packets in, or 40 bags.
Yeah,
it was only $9, so Amazon.
What?
Yeah, you can get this on Amazon, not just H Mart. So,
but I just ran out of coffee, so maybe I'm going to be trying some of this tea in the mornings. But Hyeshil, it's been an honor, again, as I said at the top of the show, to have you on and to have you share so much of your story with us here, some of it for the very first time. And before we leave, because I know it's late where you are in the Netherlands, I just wanted to ask you, we talked a lot I feel like a lot of your story is informed by the narrative of adoption. And we talked a lot pre-interview about changing that narrative and painting the fuller picture, like by sharing stories. What we do on the show here, that's something that I think all of us are really passionate about. And then in your guest forum, you talked about the thought process of redefining the word adoption, and that you had given that some thought. And so I wanted to leave the episode, I guess, on how you would go about redefining it, if you're open to sharing that.
That's a really good question. Well, generally, as I said, here in the Netherlands, at least, and that's the experience I can speak for the most, the narrative about adoption is incredibly strong. It's very, it's really formed through TV and through these reunion TV shows, where it seems like reunion is the single one goal you can have as an adoptee. And it says nothing about what happens after or really before. And I guess what I would like is that, first of all, for adoption to be experienced as successful, whatever that is, that it is not something that is viewed from the perspective of the adoptive parents, but from the adoptee. And also to be seen as someone who is living as an adoptee. So what I really like is the show This Is Us. Maybe you've seen it.
I have not. I've not gotten the courage or the strength to watch it yet.
Yeah, I can imagine, because it's well, I cried my eyes out for real. Not just like, oh, this show, but really like true grief and sadness. But what they do really good, I mean, they for sure have spoken to adoptees, and they show Sterling K. Brown. He plays Randall, who is an adopted man within his family. They show his life as an adoptee and the conversations that can come up, or and what I love the most, and maybe what I would like to share most answering this question, is the ghost kingdom. So it's something I did not have words for, but thinking of my mother lives inside of me, and somehow I think less of my father. I don't know, but my parents or where I'm from. And there are thoughts that I've never shared with anyone, but they are just sort of subconsciously in me. And I think about them and where they are, or it can be just during the day, or maybe, when I think about it more deeply and consciously. For example, as I'm born in September, I was conceived around Christmas. And it's one of the things I like to think about most of this Christmas time in Korea in 1983, where my parents, must have met, or they were together, or there was something. And I like to think about those things, and that's the ghost kingdom, and it's just what exists inside of you. And I wish that those narratives would be more more visible. And I loved how that show did that, because it's really true. You really think about it and can comfort you, and it's just a part of you. And I think very few people know that.
I love it. Beautifully, beautifully spoken. And I really appreciate you sharing that. And now I have to watch the show. Hyeshil, thank you so, so much. If people wanted to connect with you in any way, what would be the best way for them to do that?
They can follow my Instagram, which is Hyeshil, HYSHIL, on Insta. I guess.
Perfect. Cool. Well, we will link that in the show notes, because I will probably be writing them. Again, thank you so, so much. This has been an absolutely an absolute honor and privilege and a wonderful
Thank
conversation.
you.
Nathan, are you getting ready to ask something?
No, I was just saying thank you so much for taking the time at such a late hour. I know that the time difference is fairly large. So, but we appreciate you taking the time, and glad we could work it out. So,
yes,
thank you for having me and giving me the chance to share my story. Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you for sharing.
And it's always an honor to have a person who's listened to the show on. I think it's a treat for us, and I think it's a very special thing to be able to talk to the community and allow them to utilize our platform. If you wanted to ever be a guest on the show, you can reach out to us at JanchiShow@justlikemedia.com via email. I also believe there's a form that you can fill out via our Instagram handle. I think it's a Linktree bio. That's at Janchi Show there, and at Janchi Show on all the other social media platforms. You can also leave us a voicemail at 972-677-8867 if you want to ask us questions, leave us comments, anything like that. If you also want to leave us a review and or comments on our podcast, anywhere that any podcast that you listen to, or any podcast player that allows for that, we would love to have you leave us a rating or a review. That means a lot to us as well. You can also support the show, JanchiShow.com/support and store. Those are two different ways that you can do that. Nathan, tell them about the live show we got coming up real quick.
Oh, and again, yes, we have a live show in person, October 22nd in Dallas. So more details, follow all of our socials. You'll see the information that we'll be posting, but it will be that entire day, essentially October 22nd. So stay tuned. We will have a form online where you can sign up for that and reserve your spot. And we would look forward to seeing everyone and meeting there. You can find me on Instagram at @Nowak, and also you can find me on Facebook. I'm in the after party.
He is in the after party. You can find me on Instagram and on LinkedIn at Patrick in the World. You can also find me on my website, patrickintheworld.me. You can find our non-existent co-host, KJ, at KJ Relke, wherever he wants to be found.
He's
as
existent.
Well.
He's just not present.
I will also say, as you're hearing this, hopefully all of those things are already out. So about the live show. So hopefully you've already signed up and bought a ticket, and you know all of the really incredible things that we are doing. I think we got a lot of special things lined up. So very excited for that. Hyeshil, again, thank you so much.
Yes.
Definitely got to have you back on, because 100 more things that I want to talk to you about. Specifically, we'll get into it later. But other than that, I guess until next week, we will see you later. Until then, Janchi,
heyo!